Oh, go.
Hmm?
All right. Can you edit this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're talking about cankers. Cankers on trees, perennial or target cankers. They have concentric rings, or they form callus wood. It's a wood that no longer has the ability to transport nutrients or water. Nectaria is one of the cankers that we're talking about. Strumella and Utapella are two others. And then there's also something called an annual canker, which is different than the perennial. Fusarium maple. And then there's others, the chestnut blight, which we've heard about, I'm sure, with the American chestnut, perennial, diffuse cankers, and hypoxylon, which will be on beech trees. You've seen beech that have, their bark starts to break up, or they have fruiting bodies on them. It's also, these types of cankers are also involved in sudden oak death, and some spruce and some fir get something called Cytospora, which is also a perennial diffuse canker. Nectaria canker is our most important stem disease. You see a lot of times the cat faces on birch and walnut. If they're greater than 1 year old, if the nectaria canker has been there for more than 1 year, you'll see concentric rings. Most important on young trees because it will basically stunt their growth, or it can actually kill them if it becomes too bad. Right here's a picture of it. You can see the concentric rings right here. Just kind of forms around, but that is the disease at work, the canker forming. And it will actually take that, and as it grows, it'll go around the whole tree, and it will girdle it to the point where it won't be able to take any nutrients up through the conductive tissue. Beech scale and Nectaria complex, we'll just go through this real quick. This is kind of what it looks like. I'm sure you've seen this on beech trees where you have the bark breaking up and some black areas within the cracks. This is where the fungus starts to kind of set up shop and start to work, and that can kill a tree. Here's the fruiting bodies of the canker itself. This is hypoxylon canker on beech trees. And this is what it's associated with, beech scale nymph. The fungus and the nymph both work together to basically attack the trees, weaken them to the point where the canker can then come in and do its job. Strumella canker is on oaks, and it looks like this. Kind of gives them a deformed appearance, these ridges throughout the bark. The bark doesn't necessarily break open, but it definitely disrupts the growth of the tree itself, and it gives you some defect in the wood. Here is some damage that was done with the Strumella canker. It weakened the tree at that point, and then there was a windstorm and some blowdown occurred. Utapella is on maples and often attacks small trees, and black fruiting bodies is often the case that you see to identify it on maples. And here it is on a small maple tree, what it might look like. And Fusarium canker, the sugar maple, red maple, and tulip poplar is what it affects. Damages within the growth rings. We're not going to go through all that right there.
There's
And
chestnut blight.
Chestnut blight. Trying to come up with a couple pictures here for you. Okay, chestnut blight, it affects the bark and the limbs and the bole of the tree. It will, it's a fungus that comes onto it, and it basically cracks it open. There's orange fruiting bodies on it, and then once they kind of inhabit or inoculate the tree itself, they will start to grow, and they will basically incorporate themselves into the tree. The bark will then start to split apart. It is something that girdles the tree, it kills it, and that's the main reason why we don't have any American chestnut left that are not affected by the blight. This was an American chestnut tree back in the day when chestnuts were abundant in Pennsylvania. It's a very large tree. We don't have these sizes of chestnut trees around anymore due to the blight. So here's a couple chestnut logs that people were sitting on at one point. You can see how big they are in comparison to some of the trees we have nowadays. You won't find a chestnut tree over probably maybe 16 inches, and at that point it's probably going to have the blight. Here is hypoxylon canker again on some birch, and there's a quiz. So let's go through with